watching India Ahead News. I'm Palak Sharma, and right now you're watching a very special e-conclave. While in the lifespan of nations, India is still young, its core values, rich heritage and cultural diversity has been the fuel for its development and is admired across the world. A major milestone for the nation is August 15, 2022, when independent India will turn 75. The Honorable Prime Minister of India has given his clarion call for establishing a new India by 2022. Niti Aayog's strategy for New India at 75 captures three key messages from the Prime Minister. Development must become a mass movement. Development strategy should help achieve broad-based economic growth, and the strategy, when implemented, will bridge the gap between public and private sector performance. To celebrate this momentous occasion, Centre for Strategy and Leadership is organizing a series of events. The first program of the E-Series is this e-conclave titled New India at 75, Internet of Things and the Changing Face of Fisheries Industries. So without wasting any further time, let me introduce you to our speakers for today. It's an honor to have on our broadcast the chief guest for this e-conclave, Shri Pratap Chandra Sarangi, Honorable Minister of State for Fisheries, Animal Husbandry and Dairying and Ministry of Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises, Government of India. A foot soldier of Honorable Prime Minister Modi, his commitment towards development-centric work, integrity and simplicity have led to massive transformations at the grassroots levels. Our other special speakers today are Lieutenant General Rajesh Pant, who is the National Cyber Security Coordinator for the Prime Minister's Office, Government of India. He has extensive top-level experience in defence, IT and telecom. He is a founding member of India's indigenous electronic warfare program also. We also have Shri Raj Nehru, who is the Vice Chancellor of Shri Vishwakarma Skill University, Government of Haryana, the first skill university of the country. Lieutenant General P.J.S. Pannu, former Deputy Chief of Integrated Defence Staff. Shri Sushil Kumar, DDG IoT, Department of Telecommunications, Government of India. Shri Parthasarathi Trivedi, CEO and co-founder Skylo Technologies, and Shri Vikas Sharma, CEO, Centre for Strategy and Leadership. Before I start, I request the chief guest to unveil the New India at 75 poster. All right, let me now open the discussion, starting with our chief guest, Shri Pratap Chandra Sarangi. Sir, what are some of the recent initiatives that the government has taken for the fisheries industries is going to be my first question to you.
Exactly, fisheries sector was very neglected after independence, and Prime Minister, our Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi is the first man to recognize the importance of this sector. Fisheries in India remained an important source of food, nutrition and generation of revenue and foreign currency also. Fish being an affordable and rich source of animal protein is one of the healthiest options to mitigate hunger and malnutrition. The sector has immense potential to double the farmers' income within a limited period, and the sector's growth is also estimated at 10.88%. This is a very tangible income with a total export value of 46,662 crore during 18-19. The sector is growing at a rate of 9.71% in fisheries exports. Recent initiatives taken by the government is quite tangible. Given this impressive growth story, fisheries sector government considers essential to consolidate the sectoral growth gains and sustain growth through policy and financial supports. Government has taken a revolutionary step to introduce this Blue Revolution scheme, and subsequently followed by the Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana. And Government of India has taken several initiatives to harness the potential of the sector. The centrally sponsored schemes Blue Revolution was launched in 2015 and 16 for integrated development and management of fisheries for a period of 5 years with an outlay of 3,000 crores. Under this scheme, central funds to the tune of rupees 2,600 crore has been provided to states and union territories for the past 5 years. And under this ambitious scheme of Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana, our vision of Prime Minister is to bring about blue revolution through sustainable and responsible development of fisheries sector in India. The Ministry of Fisheries and Animal Welfare has laid down a budgetary size of 20,050 crores, including state beneficiary and central share, which is being implemented in a period of 5 years from 2021 to 24-25 in all states and union territories. PMMSY was also announced as a part of 9 lakh crores larger COVID-19 relief package. PMSY is the highest ever investment in the Indian fisheries sector, and out of this, an investment of about rupees 12,340 crores has been envisaged for beneficiary-oriented schemes, and 7,710 crores investment for infrastructure development. Under this scheme, there are provisions for mariculture, brackish water culture, aquaculture in inland areas, and RAS, cage culture, ornamental fish culture, coral culture, seaweed cultivation. Besides, mechanization of traditional boats, deep sea vessels, and starting of laboratories. And all this are meant for the development of our fishers, fish farmers, fish vendors, and development of our infrastructure, which will pave the way for an all-round development and the uplifting the standard of living of our fishermen. So these are the important sectors which are being given importance to under this.
Well, absolutely, sir. We're talking about the recent initiatives of the government, but my next question to you is, what is the vision of the government for the New India at 75 in terms of the fisheries industry is concerned?
Exactly, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has fixed up a goal that by the 75th year of celebration of our independence, we should give a big jump in our economic and other sectors. And in this sector, this fishery sector has a very potential role, a very great role. And to double the farmers' income is our primary goal, and to reach our economy to $5 trillion economy. So far as this goal is concerned, fishery sector has a great and important role since its growth rate is very significant. The Ministry of Fisheries, Animal Husbandry and Dairying aims to achieve the following important milestones during the next 5 years. To enhance fish production by 70 lakh tons to 220 lakh by 24-25. Double export earning from 46,662 crore to 1 lakh crore by 24-25. Doubling income of fishers and fish farmers. Reduction of post-harvest losses from the period of from the reported 20-25% to about 10%. So this will be a significant goal, and generation of additional 55 lakh direct and indirect gainful employment opportunities in fisheries and many others.
Well, my next question would be to you, Lieutenant General Rajesh Pant. What are the cyber security challenges in the IoT space, particularly in cases of large-scale deployments of IoT solutions?
Thank you. And firstly, respected Minister Shri Pratap Chand Sarangi and our fellow esteemed panelists, good morning to everyone. And my congratulations to the Center for Strategy and Leadership for organizing this e-conclave on the theme of New India at 75, Internet of Things and the changing face of the fisheries industry. Well, at the outset, you may recall that our Prime Minister on 15th of August from the ramparts of the Red Fort, for the first time, highlighted the importance of cyber security. And he said कि एक नई रणनीति बनने वाली है. There is a new cyber security strategy which is being made by the nation, which will cater for the entire ecosystem. With that background and coming to the Internet of Things, you are aware that IoT caters for a variety of devices. There are different verticals. There are some devices which are for the home. There are some devices where they call the Industrial Internet of Things, the IIoT in the Industry 4.0. There is, you'll be surprised, an Internet of Battlefield things, which are used by the military in the battlefield, which is why the common term used is the Internet of Everything. In fact, there are about 17 billion devices today already in the world, and they say by 25 it will be 30 billion, and by 2030 there will be 50 billion IoT devices. Now, a basic IoT devices has four components. One is the sensor. It's a common sensor. It could be optical sensor, it could be for sound, etc. So there is a sensor. The sensor gives its inputs to a processor. The processor actuates something. So the third thing is the actuator. And finally is the communicator that is meant for the communication. So there is a sensor, a processor, an actuator, and a communicator. So the challenge for IoT devices is that presently the standards for cybersecurity of IoT devices do not exist in our country. In the same breath, let me add that the Ministry of Electronics and IT and the DOT and NITI Aayog are all working on it, including the Bureau of Industrial Standards. And one M2M standard has been adopted by India, and we are also considering some sort of a cybersecurity labeling, which has recently been done by Singapore. So the challenge, as I said, is that while India has adopted a 13-digit numbering scheme, some of you may not be aware that like the mobile has a 10-digit numbering scheme, in India we have adopted a 13-digit numbering scheme for identifying the various devices. But there are aspects of mutual authentication which is done in the mobile, which so far are not there in the IoT devices. So as we go along, as smart cities come in and with 5G coming in and IoT coming in, these are the challenges that we have to meet immediately.
Right, but we are still looking at a very bright future as far as IoT is concerned. Mr. Parthasarathy Trivedi, if I am to ask you, how can IoT help in improving the safety and profitability of Indian fishermen, which is a key goal of the Honorable Prime Minister's vision also of New India?
Thank you so much for the question, and my regards to the Honorable Minister and General Pant and other dignitaries on the panel. I believe that digitization and connectivity is actually going to be the key to achieving the Prime Minister's goal of doubling our fisheries production under the Blue Revolution. I don't think it can happen without it. And I think that technology can transform fisheries sector in three main ways: safety, productivity, and sustainability. You're familiar with connectivity to your OB vans as an example, and we're familiar with connectivity on large cruise ships, which traditionally require these huge antennas, which leaves absolutely no solution for affordable two-way connectivity at sea for the lakhs of fishing vessels that remain unconnected and unserved. And in response to that challenge, my team at Skylo has successfully reduced the cost of satellite connectivity by more than 2 orders of magnitude, essentially shrinking it into a portable transponder, which I'm holding in my hand, making it possible for every fishing vessel at sea to be connected, no matter where in the Indian waters it goes. And now with their standard mobile phones paired with Skylo's transponder over Bluetooth or Wi-Fi, fishermen now have access to life-saving two-way connectivity, the ability to stay close to their families while being anywhere in the waters, and they can access the markets remotely. And think about this. This is an industry that has been analog for centuries that's being digitized for the first time. Perhaps the best testament to our work is the fact that our technology has already been used to rescue 2 fishing vessels at sea early this year. And as we roll this out pan-India, it brings me no greater joy than to know that these families will no longer be separated or lose their dear ones at sea. Furthermore, I believe that connectivity has been the missing link in allowing fishermen to be connected to wholesale markets. With Skylo, fishermen will soon be able to access these digital marketplaces, completely transforming an industry under the Honorable Prime Minister's vision, which has been essentially offline for centuries. And coming to traceability and sustainability, buyers, because now they will know the exact location of where the catch was sourced from, will be able to immediately understand traceability at sea. And with data from hundreds of thousands of fishing vessels at sea, India will have access to the most robust insights on optimal fishing practices, weather patterns at sea. And fishermen now have the power of cloud computing at their fingertips with actionable insights available to them in all of the diverse languages that they speak.
Well, absolutely, Shri Trivedi, just like you said, digitization will be key to achieving goals, and technology can transform fisheries in a big way. And of course, the OB example did fit here very, very well. But Mr. Vikas Sharma, I'm going to move on to you. What is the objective of CSL's New India at 75 awareness campaign, first of all?
Thanks, Palak. At the outset, I would like to pay my sincere regards to Honorable Minister for sparing time out for this e-conclave, and other dignitaries, Dr. Pant, General Pannu, Mr. Trivedi, Mr. Raj Nehru, Mr. Sushil Kumar. Thank you for sharing the time. India is amongst the youngest nation in the world, having its less than 65% of population with less than 35 years of age, with immense potential in every sector. And this is being proven in the recent scenario. And we must applaud the policies and the visionary leadership of Honorable Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, and that India is now, leading lot many sectors. When we talk about the present area, which we call the technology era, the startup era, so India has become the second largest market for mobile manufacturers. When we talk about startups, India is again, the Indian startup ecosystem is second largest in the world. And today, as we are talking about the IoT sector, so there is a recent case study, a survey, which is showing that the IoT sector of the India will touch more than $20 billion of market by 2022. So this is the potential of Indian market when we talk about technologies, IoT and all. While unveiling the strategy for India at 75, Honorable Prime Minister stated that it should be an inclusive growth. It could be an inclusive strategy with public-private partnership. And we should start a Jan Andolan of development. So by inspiring with the thoughts of Honorable Prime Minister, CSL is coming up with this unique set of programs, the unique set of dialogues that should be concentrated on different subjects. Today, as we are having the subject of IoT. So we'll be talking about what India has achieved, and as we all know, with the visionary leadership of Honorable Prime Minister, India has achieved new heights of success in various fields, and it's transformed like never before. So we should keep up that pace, because now government is accepting us, every sector, with open hands, and the policies and the strategies of the government is in support of technologies, the startups, and the new ideas and the indigenous technologies like Skylo, as Mr. Park was mentioning. So keeping that in mind, CSL has started this dialogue, and I think we'll be talking about what India has achieved and transformed in this recent years, and what India's agenda could be, the way forward when India will be 100.
Well, absolutely. So, of course, reaching new heights of success is going to be the main aim of this entire campaign. Shri Raj Nehru, I'll be coming to you now. How can we quickly increase the pool of skilled manpower for IoT to meet the demands of the future?
Thank you very much, and respected Honorable Minister Pratap Chand Sarangi ji, along with all the panelists today in this program. The first thing you asked is about the future demands. So we must have a very good clarity about what kind of demands we are looking at. As we heard the previous speakers also talking about, there's a huge surge of demand. More than 150 million new technology-oriented jobs are in the pipeline. Not only that, this is the only segment, like IoT is one of the largest growing. Cumulative annual growth is more than 20-25%. And given that we have moved from 1G to 5G in 40 years, and we are going to see a very fast speed with which we'll move to the 6G as well. So which means there would be further surge in the jobs that we will be seeing in the coming days. Besides, this COVID has created a lot of challenges where it has helped also us to register a huge surge in the number of connected technology deployments, especially in the enterprise and automotive sector. So the net is that this is going to grow at a very, very high speed. My recommendations would be we need to have a pyramidal approach. In the pyramid, we have to look at the top of the pyramid where the quality research professionals are focusing on looking at sectoral connectedness and seeing, given that we are a developing nation and we have huge potential to become a developed nation, and between developing and developed in this delta, there needs to be a synergy between all the sectors together, and they need to do a research and find out opportunities where they can come up. Then we need to, in the pyramid, we need to have a focus on the mid-rung, which is more of creating skillful engineers in the system who are able to, who have the good ability to understand the programming and understanding the need of the servers, the need of the softwares. That is the second part. And third part is the bottom of the pyramid, which is more about people who are at the user end and who need to know how to use it. So therefore, it's a need that our curriculums must be changed. The short-term programs like QP-based programs, they need to be increased. These QPs need to be integrated at school level so that the students' familiarity with the IoT and the relevant technologies is made at appropriate level. Another challenge is the training of trainers. We also need to have rightful trainers at the right stage from the schooling to the higher education level. Assessments have to be made very systematic and structured, and then there's a government has to focus on generating demand, because if there is no demand, where will we have these getting absorbed, these skilled resources getting absorbed? At the same time, I think there is need to create a focus on the startups and entrepreneurships so that there could be demand generation and the skilled resources can be supported to meet the need of the industry.
Right. In fact, that was going to be my next question to you. You said pyramidal approach is necessary, but of course the training also. So how could the end users of IoT solutions such as fishermen be trained to use these modern technologies?
Look, it's a very important question today. You have seen when we had the surge of the digital transportation system like Ola and Uber, we had millions of drivers who were getting skilled and taking the benefit and advantage of the digital transformation and the IoT, by which they were able to generate huge amount of livelihood earning for themselves. This is the same thing that's going to happen in the area of the fishermen. You see, today one of the biggest challenges in India is that the quality of water, the production of fishes and the depths of the fishes because of the quality of water, salinity of the water, and many other environmental reasons which actually pollute the water and then result into the death of fishes. So what is important is how today government is going to institutionalize these digital sensors which will help to monitor the quality of the water and thus reduce the deaths of the fishes. And this can only come when digital centers, these sensors are placed across the country, and these fishermen are trained to use those applications to see how that information from the centralized data servers is thrown to fishermen, and they are able to use it on the real-time basis to solve the problem that their fishes can face, and they can use that. That's what India needs to do.
Right. Well, absolutely. In fact, before I go to Sushil Kumar, who's been waiting very, very patiently, and talk to him about the IoT-based technologies, I'd like to come back to you once again, Lieutenant General Rajesh Pant, and ask you what are the best ways to protect IoT devices from cyber attacks and threats?
So there are a couple of things, and that's a very important question. First is that we need to adopt standards. Secondly, there has to be a concept of security by design. While the device is being manufactured, that is the time where some cyber security measures have to be put in. And third, of course, is the concept of labeling, like what you have seen in, let's say, energy saving devices and the food safety standards, etc. So every IoT device needs to be labeled as to what is the cyber security that it is providing. Having said that, now, it has to be a whole of a nation approach. So in the IoT ecosystem, there are basically four players. One is the IoT device manufacturer. Then you have the network service provider. Then the IoT application developer, and then the IoT user. Now, all four have a role to play in ensuring that the IoT environment remains safe. Let me tell you from the government point of view, the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India is setting up a national trust center for IoT. The TEC committee is working on it. Then the 1M2M standard, as I told you, has been adopted by India. MeitY, DOT are both addressing this issue. So there is a lot happening in this space, and especially with the smart cities coming in, this issue is going to become very, very important. So these are the aspects that we are working on at the moment in the government. And as I said, the National Cyber Security Strategy is also addressing this issue. Yeah. Thank you.
Right. So a lot is happening in this space, and now let me go over to Shri Sushil Kumar. Thank you for waiting very patiently, sir. What are some of the use cases of IoT-based technologies that can benefit the nation?
Thank you for your question, and I would like to thank Mr. Sarma for inviting me, and it's my best regards to Honorable Minister, Mr. Sarangi, General Pant, and other distinguished speakers in this conference. As IoT is one of the most emerging technology across the globe as on date, and this is the technology which can create the smart infrastructure. And these infrastructure, as already mentioned by previous speakers, it may be in various verticals like power, automotive, safety and surveillance, healthcare, then agriculture, water management, waste management, agriculture, animal husbandry, fisheries. There are so many verticals, and these verticals may become the pillar of the smart cities as well as for the smart villages. And these are the use cases. Like smart metering will be the one use case, and I shall be mentioning that in the smart city we will be having the city surveillance, we will be having the intelligent transport system, for which the Niti Aayog was already working to finalize the technology for the smart for the intelligent transport system, and I was also the member for that. And cellular V2X may be the technology for future for the intelligent transport system. So in TEC, we started working in M2M IoT domain in around 2015. We released around 13 technical reports, like in the verticals of power, safety and surveillance, health, and smart homes, smart cities, and now on a smart village and agriculture we are working. We are supposed to release this technical document by December. And we also worked on the communication technology, which is very, very important for the transmission of the data from the IoT devices. As if the data is not transmitted in time, it will have no value. Therefore, this cellular and non-cellular technology may exist in this domain, and in the non-cellular, like LoRa and Sigfox, LoRa network is being deployed by Tata Communication and the Sandra company, and the distance it can cover in the rural areas, that is around 10 to 15 kilometers, and some of the some of the startups in fisheries domain, they have installed the devices on LoRa technology. So, and they are also the members in our working groups, which is on smart village and agriculture. Right. And similarly, we can have this city smart lighting. Smart lighting is working on LoRa technology, and it is one of the biggest use cases. And for the outcome of these technical reports, these have been used for the development of the policies and the standards in the IoT domain, such as 13-digit numbering scheme for SIM-based devices and gateways that was developed by us and approved, and now the telecom service providers, they are using 13-digit numbering scheme. Then further the embedded SIM, which can have the subscription from more than one telecom service provider. It can have 2-3 telecom service providers, and it has been mandated by Ministry of Road Transport and Highways, and in the tracking device in view of passenger safety. And these I think around 6 million devices they were in the around 3 million were installed by January, and 2.5 million they were in the pipeline. If the corona had not been there, then around 8 million devices might have been installed in the commercial passenger vehicles. Similarly, the 1M platform, it has been, we were working from the last 1.5 years for adoption of these standards, and now these have been become the national standards. They will be the voluntary standards, but these are very useful for the development of IoT ecosystem, especially for smart cities. Because you have to share the data across the smart cities. If suppose somebody has done a crime and the vehicle is running from one smart city to another smart city, and if we are not able to share the video or the or any data, then it is of no use. And the smart city should be sustainable smart cities. If the smart city is not the doesn't remain smart for 15-20 years, then what is the use of smart cities? So these standard-based solutions are required.
So it's going to be a very important technology as per what you are saying, sir. Right.
And moreover,
so I'll come back to you, sir. But before that, let me go over once to Lieutenant General PJS Panu. Sorry for keeping you waiting that long, sir. But going by the present government policy on fisheries, what areas do you think should be included further from here?
Thank you very much for bringing me over for this very important discussion on fisheries. That too, it's a privilege to speak in presence of Honorable Minister who set the tone himself of this very important subject. I have a belief that 7,000 kilometers of coastline and also island territories provide huge amount of challenge and also opportunity to our country. We cannot have our sector, which is a frontier sector, because, you know, from the security point of view, I look at coastal areas as a frontier. The frontiers got to be secured, and they got to be manned by our own people who are happy and prosperous. And those who are into traditional fishing are the ones which are actually going about 200 or beyond nautical miles into areas where they are looking for daily livelihood, and we cannot afford to have them poor and backward. As a result, what one is looking for is to make their life happy, secure, and prosperous, at the same time well integrated into the national mainstream through technology and through prosperity put together. And also link it up with people who are actually going to be eating fish like seafood and adding calorific value and health of a nation. As a result, I look at the fishing community and the fishery sector as a wholesome solution for security, for health, and for blue economy, adding to 5 trillion economy as envisioned by the Honorable Prime Minister of our country. As far as the policies are concerned, I think government is right in looking at deploying huge amount of funds into the modernization of the fisherman's life and to the industry per se. But over a period of time, it cannot just remain on subsidy. I think it's like, you know, that famous, saying goes that, you know, teach a man how to fish and not, give him fish to eat. But I think in the fisheries, I think we have to make him self-sustained into his own livelihood and contribute to economy in a manner that he becomes not only a part and parcel of the economy, but also in overall well-being and national integration process into security. Having said that, I think the wholesome policy of the government has to cover between bait and plate. It means that the fishing community, which is today traditional and unorganized, has to be smartened up, has to be integrated into e-governance, e-marketing. And we, traditionally you talk about, is it a fish market? It means, are you so disorganized? I think we need to smart our fish markets and fishing marketing as such. The policy has to deal wholesomely between the fish which becomes profitable. It means as Partha Sarthi was saying, that you connecting him with the market survey, he is catching what is profitable, and he is not carrying dead load, which is not going to be sold, and it is only going to become waste and toxic. As a result, I think the policy got to deal with the logistic and supply chain, including cold chain, which brings fish not only from the coastal areas, also from the hinterland in the rivers to the plate. That is, the F&B hospitality has to be integrated into the whole ecosystem. Also, when you talk about it is not only the fishermen life alone. I think there is a lot of related industry which has to come in, like, people who are making boats or, small ships. I think even there, that industry, once the fisherman is rich, he will buy better boats, bigger boats, more modern boats, more technology which will come into it, and you will find that these better mechanized deep fishing vessels will enrich lives of the fishermen who are at the moment paddling around and struggling with their own traditional boats, who go away from their families and actually are stuck between disease, disaster, and something which is absolutely desolate. When we talk about improving the lives of a fisherman, I think the policy has to completely integrate them,
Right.
as I would compare, like we have on the borders, land borders, we have border area development projects. Now, BADP projects are basically to make sure that people who are in the border areas are affluent, they are not vulnerable, and when they are vulnerable, they will not play into hands of our adversaries. As a result, we need to protect our own borders and bring in certain security implications into the whole thing. And I think we have to digitize this entire industry.
Right.
We have to smarten the oceans. We have to digitize the oceans. We have to make plots.
Right.
In that, various blocks got to be made. Those blocks got to be evaluated. The blocks can be auctioned. I think we need to push our markets
Right.
into the ocean itself. We have to have floating markets where the fishermen are connected smartly with those floating markets, and they are bringing the fish there as on
Right.
demand basis, from where a cold container can ship it further into hinterland. And I think he can get the diesel from the smart market, which is a floating market, and he can offload his ship there, increasing the sustainability. And all this cannot happen unless he's connected with his family, unless he's connected with the market, unless
Right.
he has better sustainability. His M2M works in a manner that his machine is working well, he's in a healthier environment, he's happy financially, and he's a satisfied man. So we have to make sure that we make him rich,
Right.
we make him connected, and we make our nation healthy. I think this is a wholesome process of integration.
Well, absolutely. And just like you pointed out, General Pannu, overall well-being and integration of national security is also very important. But going back to our chief guest, Sri Pratap Chandra Sarangi, sir, I want to ask you, according to you, what role will the Internet of Things-based technologies play in the fisheries sector in the near future?
It is told that information is knowledge and knowledge is power. They will be more informed about the hazards, about the market facility, and ups and downs, so they can have a proper earning, they can have a free access to global markets. And so far as the standard of this fish production is concerned, they will have testing facilities, and information will be digitally provided to them about the laboratories and the testing mechanisms, which will enhance their income and which will make them capable for fish farming and fish production in a very scientific manner. Moreover, in marine fishing, they will be informed about the details of the weather, and so that they can take precautions, and they can also seek protection from government agencies. And so far as the ups and downs of markets and cold storage and other facilities, they will be informed about that, and they can know the better technology. They can have better access to latest technologies world over through this IoT, and they can also have a free access to global platforms, global market, and they can directly buy and sell their products. And they can preserve them they can earn a good sum without any intermediate agency. They can have free access to it.
Right. Also, sir, the government's recent policy changes and achievements in the fisheries sector by far have been the most significant since independence. So, what are some of those areas in the fisheries sector that you feel will need attention in the next level of policy intervention?
For the first time, government is providing insurance for deep sea vessels which were not provided, and government is thinking of providing insurance to other sectors of fish vendors, fish producers, fishers, fishermen, and other stakeholders also. And so far as the legislation and regulation is concerned, from the beach up to 12 nautical miles, there was the rights of provincial government to make legislation to regulate fishing and all that. And from 12 nautical miles up to 200 nautical miles, only the central government is empowered to make legislation and regulate fishing. But due to the absence of a comprehensive law for the whole country, this was not very properly ordered, and many foreign players were looting our fishing resources, which has been completely prohibited, and government is deeply pondering over having a central legislation so that with many policy changes, so that we can explore the vast resources which are available there. Besides that, to achieve an ambitious target of an additional fish production of 70 lakhs by 24-25, government is making certain changes, and we are providing deep sea vessels with 40% and 60% subsidies for general male and SC and female entrepreneurs. And we want to enhance our aquaculture productivity from 3 tons to 5 tons per hectare, so that our fishermen's income will be doubled. And we are giving much importance on research and innovation in this field, and about 1.25 crores rupees are given for this research and innovation activities, and which will generate about 55 lakh direct and indirect income. The basic aim is to double the fisheries export from 46,662 crores to 1 lakh crore, and double also fishermen's and fishers' income.
Right. Well, absolutely. So I totally agree with the views here. In fact, let me move over once again to Shri Parthasarathi Trivedi also, who's again been waiting for a long time. What are some of the challenges in incorporating IoT solutions in the fisheries industry, sir?
Sure. And I think that the Honorable Minister hit the nail on the head in describing that we're not alone in the water. As a nation, our fishermen struggle without any data at sea, while at the same time, unfortunately, losing their lives on a weekly basis, while at the same time, other countries are competing for the best fishing zones and territories. And this is a issue of velocity. How quickly, as a nation, we can transform this sector through digitization, that is going to be the key. And this cannot be measured in years. This has to be measured in weeks, according to me, if we are to gain the upper hand as a country and benefit from the most advanced and modern technologies that we can provide to our fishermen at sea. And that's going to require a strong amount of alignment across stakeholders. And that's going to require us to execute as a country faster than ever before in generating awareness among the various communities, as well as deploying technologies faster than ever before. If we're going to succeed in more than doubling fish production. And actually, fishermen are completely aware of benefits of technology. In fact, when we talk to fleet owners, they want to know how the ratio of their catch to the cost of fuel consumed per round trip voyage, how that compares between trips. They want to keep their fish fresh with onboard temperature monitoring at sea. They may not have, the IoT verbiage that you and I use on this panel, but they're fully aware of what technology can do to augment their innate knowledge of celestial navigation with the most modern geolocation tools available. And they absolutely want to upweight their productivity at sea. And finally, we have a chance to do that in India.
Well, absolutely, and that really is going to be something to look out for. Mr. Vikas Sharma, how do you see the Indian fishery sector changing over the next few years?
Well, undoubtedly, the fishery sector of our country, emerging one, it is employing more than 50 million people across the country. And keeping that in mind, obviously the potential in the fishery sector, the Modi government just a few months back launched a dedicated ministry on the fishery, the Ministry of Fisheries, and we have the Honorable Minister, Mr. Pratap Chandra Sarangi, who will actually leading the ministry from front. And that was his efforts that just in a couple of months, the Honorable Prime Minister, the Modi government, come up with an unprecedented budget for the ministry just to be focused and make this sector more sustainable. And the amounting was more than 20,000 crores that was given in under the Matsya Sampada Yojana. So that is certainly the welcome step by the Modi government, and that was because of the efforts of Honorable Minister. And that was a part of Atmanirbhar Bharat. Mr. Nehru was mentioning about one case study that how with the use of technology, especially with the IoT technology, we can actually enhance and obviously make the positive changes in the fisheries sectors. So there was a case study
right.
in the state of Jharkhand, which is actually producing 1.90 lakh metric ton of fish per annum. So they have used as a pilot basis this IoT based technology, wherein actually they will test the water, what is the oxygen level, what is the heat level of the water, and by fixing up the problems,
right.
That is actually reducing the deaths of the fishes by 50%. So that is certainly the example of IoT technology, how we can make positive changes. And we, as we had the views of Mr. Parthasarathy Trivedi, that for sure that, the IoT technologies that will certainly provide best technologies and the positiveness to the fisheries sectors and obviously make the system more robust with maximizing their productivity and the optimization of resources. So I'm pretty much sure with the use
right.
of IoT in the fisheries sector that will actually pave the ways, to raise the sector and reach new heights in the days to come.
Certainly new heights in the days to come. And Shri Raj Nehru, Mr. Vikas Sharma also mentioned you, and so my next question to you as an expert is that what is your vision for Atmanirbhar Bharat in terms of skilling in India?
Thank you. See, first of all, I was listening to most of the participants. One thing we need to remember, we have entered into a serious water crisis as well as we talk about the fisheries in the country. So one important suggestion I would like to give the Honorable Minister as well is that across the country we have got millions of water bodies and they are deteriorating day by day. And one important thing is how do we rejuvenate these water bodies, because they can be an essential source of fish management across the country. So that's one part. Second part is that if we have to connect fishermen with the IoT technologies, we also have to make sure that the connectivity across the country and the users are increasing, and then they have the availability of the smartphones. So if we do not connect the nation to the last mile with the smartphones, we will not be able to leverage and then take the best advantage of the IoT technologies that we have in front of us. For an Atmanirbhar Bharat, there needs to be a synergy between all the departments, all the sectors, because unless all the sectors come together and think in a more holistic manner, especially some core sectors that will fuel the growth in the country from technological intervention, we need to see that. The fourth important thing is we must also see where the challenge is today. If we evaluate the current workforce in the country, we'll see a differing scenario. For example, 95% of the engineers today in the country are not for software development jobs, but still they have a software degree or an engineering degree in their hands. Almost 78% of the fresh hires in IT sector need training input to become more employable. And if you look at the IT, BP, BFSI sectors, almost 16 million of these professionals require reskilling. Otherwise, they will become jobless. So, Atmanirbharta will depend on how we make them job ready. How do we create solutions for the startups by curating right skills, vocal for local, and most important thing is industry, academia, relationship strengthening. Thank you.
Right. Well, thanks so much for that view. Lieutenant General Pannu, I'm going to come back to you quickly. I'm running out of time, but what are the possible security implications of using IoT-based solutions in the fishing vessels? We've already spoken about it, but if you could give us a little more detail.
General Pant spoke about certain security dimensions in a generic sense that, of course, are absolutely relevant. But as far as the oceans are concerned, I would say that in India, we have something called IMAC Center established by the Indian Navy, and the other IoT countries, IOC countries are also going to be partaking in that. When you talk about the IoT and integrated, network with all the fishermen, they will certainly develop a very positive security paradigm with the Coast Guard, Indian Navy, and the border and the coastal police, agencies. As a result, what will happen is that as far as security is concerned, one is well-being provides security, as I said, that those who are on border areas, like coastal areas or like border areas, would be more secure and more integrated with the Indian national mainstream. They cannot be lured by our enemies and create a situation of such as 26/11. In fact, in 1993, the Bombay blasts were also engineered through the ocean. There is a lot of smuggling of arms and ammunition which has happened into coastal and creek areas, and I've done research on that. As a result, to make India secure, I think the IoT and the overall connect between various agencies would actually create an ecosystem which will be well integrated, and it will serve the national interests of security, enriching the economy and blue economy of the nation. I think the well-being is there.
Absolutely. Sir, I'm running out of time, so I'm going to take a very quick question from Mr. Sushil Kumar before I wrap up with the Minister. How is the government supporting startups in the IoT space, Mr. Sushil Kumar? Very quickly from you.
As I have told you that we are having the working groups and a number of startups, they are participating in our working groups also, and DOT is having a number of agencies like Telecom Equipment Promotion Council, TSDSI, CDOT, the startups are there also, and we are having a number of labs in TEC, and the startups can come and test their equipment, like IPv6 lab is here, NGN lab is here. And a number of labs are expected to come in near future, and we are also working on security by design principles for the IoT device manufacturer, and and IoT Trust Center, which General Pant has mentioned. These recommendations came from TRI to DOT, and then from DOT has asked us to work on this in TEC. And MTCT, that is mandatory testing and certification of telecom equipment, that is the flagship project that is being carried out. And the security will be tested. All the telecom equipment and the smart devices, that is the IoT devices, will be tested in the labs before certification. These project is being done in phase manners, and I think there will be no issue in future. Related to further...
all right. Sir, I'd like to now go back to Shri Pratap Chandra Sarangi, our chief guest, for one last quick comment. Sir, to what extent do you see the Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana reforming the fisheries sectors of India in the end?
Exactly, I am quite optimistic. It will bring a revolutionary change in the field of fishery. and achieve an ambitious target of an additional income of 70 lakh metric ton by 2024 and 25. It will enhance aquaculture productivity from 3 tons per hectare to 5 tons per hectare, and because it will empower the fishermen, the fish vendors, and the producers and the exporters.
Right.
There are many lucrative packages, subsidies, and training facilities also, so that our fishermen, through farmer producer organizations, through cluster-based approach, individual approach, and through SHGs, we are going to reach the target, and by doubling the farmers' income. And no doubt our post-harvest losses will be reduced from 25% to 10%, and our income will increase.
Right.
Exports will be doubled, so that this will have a very significant growth, and through this Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana, as
right, sir. Right, sir.
For all these sectors, brackish water, mariculture, inland culture, RAs, catch culture, ornamental fish culture, seaweed cultivation, fish feed plants, hatcheries, this Matsya Sampada Yojana provides 40% and 60% subsidy to general and SC, ST and women categories.
Right, sir. Right, sir. So, in fact, the fisheries industry is a source of livelihood for most of the country's economically oppressed population, and the government has introduced several progressive policies to further develop this sector. Through this mission, the government's focus is on improving the ecosystem and infrastructure, enhancing the income of fish farmers, ensuring the safety of fishermen, and sustaining the biodiversity. With that, we come to an end of this special conclave. I'd like to thank all my guests for joining us today and apprising our viewers. Thank you so much for watching India Ahead News.